another walk over here and walking towards the little riverbed here. They always have like nice koi over here. Sometimes you see some snakes or the little supong here. But taking a walk and just wanted to, we're going to go a few kilometers here today, and then it feels great, the weather, before the sun gets too crazy in the morning. One a huge factor that I always like to bring up is if you're talking about finances and stuff, my main focus lately has been making sure that younger people start to kind of understand how the game works. Is the yin carry trade? If people are freaking out saying that it's essentially unraveling, what's happening is just not giving as much margins of profit for people. So since people aren't making as much money on it, they try to shun it and then say negative things. However, the margin of a 0% interest rate anywhere usually ends up making that nation substantially hold the bag on the deficit. That's not something that people want to do. So that's why they're having the Bank of Japan essentially raise those rates so that people aren't siphoning out their profits here and essentially putting it into other things. Is the If you lived here, a lot of people talk about Japan, they talk about the yen and stuff, but they've never been here, they've never lived here, so they don't understand. There's a lot of people who are been living subpar lives out here strictly due to the government making the currency so much weaker, and that's kind of the thing right now. So you have people here who the average income isn't up. It's not something substantial. You rarely see the wealth that you're going to see in America, where these people are just flaunting funds. Even families that do well, they're humble about it and they kind of keep it to themselves. And they'll invest in a nice vehicle or something like that, but it's just not the same level of flex. And I used to be in Orange County, California, so you're seeing people just try to show out as much as they can there so they can decipher themselves from others. That's kind of the game. But with that, the average income here is around $24,000 a year, right? So that's one of the reasons the cost of goods and things is so much lower. Food, I go out, I get a drink or some juice, food, it's extremely cheap. When I go shopping, I mean, I'll spend like ichimang, which converts to about 60, but $5 or so, and that'll get me 2, 3 bags of groceries. And I can tell you that before leaving the U.S., like each bag of groceries is about $100 or more, according to how I got kids that got to eat. But those are the things that just showed me I went to a nation that cares more about parents raising kids, because as a parent, the one thing you should understand is you do have the option to choose where you live. Of course, you want to live somewhere where you speak the language, you have the people, and you have the family, and we have all of those boxes checked here. So the Americas is extremely costly right now. It's overvalued. The price is not sustainable. And many of the people in America, I'm sure, are starting to figure this out now. I'm sure if you start to see those price tags on groceries, you're paying attention to the news and seeing what's happening. You can't deny reality all that long. And even if you do try to deny the reality of the current situation, what essentially happens is you're faced with, the reality of your savings diminishing rapidly. And, that's never a good situation to be in. I have a feeling that the government's essentially siphoning out most people's savings, and the income isn't going up as much as inflation is, so that they could easily pivot into people understanding that working for the government is the only option for many of the people. And that's essentially how you ease people into the transition of a draft. A lot of people right now are saying, "Oh, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't." But trust me, they just need to push the pain a little bit more. And this is the game they're playing. So they're really good at what they do, government structures. And you start to look at the people who are essentially in the driver's seat politically right now. And whether you look at either side, like Democrat, Republican, is I'm a libertarian, used to be a Republican. The party's too much, too outrageous. But it's a construct that doesn't really make sense because the lobbyist in the party, and then you have investment funds, all these super PACs, it doesn't work out the way you think because all of these politicians that you have end up essentially being bought out. And then the ones who aren't for sale don't excel. they, because the factor that, because of everyone pushing in the money into the game, it starts to require you to have such a large amount of money to truly make any differences. So that gets a bit overwhelming. And that's essentially what's going on when, if you're not paying attention here and you're thinking that, hey, everything's all good, I hope that you're extremely well off, retired, you have a lot of liquidable funds and assets that are free and clear. And then, hey, you can kind of stick your head in the sand if that's your situation. But for anyone who has family, has to work, and understand that all of those assets can immediately diminish, it doesn't, it's not looking too good. Because as you start to look at, CPI reports, the PPI reports out here, understanding that the cost of goods is rapidly rising right now. And then you have the government using their substitutional goods calculations, which it's ridiculous. So substitutional good isn't the same as a real good. And then the way the government substitutes things, they don't even substitute things for what they should be. These guys can essentially substitute beef for pork. I don't know how that works out if you have certain eating habits or so, but it just doesn't factor in coherently. So I'm quite happy. Like, I've been enjoying life, man. My mind's a multi-layer factor. It's obvious that I am a Black American, and so, but the reason leaving there, I don't have to be around Eurocentric nation that was built on capital racism. Like, I've gotten my kids out of it, so they don't have to spend their time learning these social Eurocentric norms to appease other people so that they can be safe. That's one thing that we, like, any person is successful like I am or others that knows it in America, you have to spend a substantial amount of your time just figuring things out to make sure that you don't offend people, that they don't get upset. Look at this. I don't know if you could see it, but there is a large koi right there. Beautiful though. This riverbed's filled with koi fish. It's nice, man. It's just that's what I was saying. The aesthetics here. You in America, you like when would go out. I like to dance. I'd go out to the bars there. It's one of those situations though. In America, everything costs to have fun. Here, I just grab a juice at the store. Got my little ion water from Cuddy Sweat and go on a walk and relax. And it's just you can have fun just walking and taking in the scenery here. So lose a lot more weight, you save more money, and it's just far more peaceful. This is why people here are usually Zen Buddhist mindsets, because it tends to make a lot more sense strategically. So we'll see what's going on. I'm just gonna keep walking back here, but I highly recommend that you guys start paying attention about what's going on, because this is a time the likes of no other when it comes to wealth distribution. And it's a reverse Robin Hood situation where many of the people who don't even have much are being charged far more to have as little as they can have. They are siphoning out people's savings with usury, which, these 29 and plus interest rates are ungodly. This is something that usually is illegal in most nations. You have to think about it. People always like to bring up Sharia law and talk about it like, oh, this, and that. But one of the ironies in Sharia law is that usury is illegal. So I'm saying, hey, I like my liquor. I love my sake and pork. So I'm not batting for all of their rules, but there are some coherent things in every group. And when it comes to making the exorbitant interest charges on people something that's not legal, it makes more rational sense, is what you would think. But I assure you guys, the to me, I don't believe that America ever truly freed the slaves. They've indoctrinated others into indentured servitude. The newer version, the new age slave, is what's going on here, and that's kind of where we are as a society. And if people don't wake up, they'll simply work away their entire lives and never be free, simply to be discarded or sent away to fight a war for assets that they will never own. I mean, you start looking at the way the police departments were designed in America too, like how they started with the night watch and the slave patrol, and their main goal was to protect corporate funds and goods to keep these people wealthy. And I mean, it's worked every time. Every time we have issues, they get an extra bit of your rights, and people just hand them over willingly for protection. When the government, we all know, is using those same protections to essentially police and strategize against people to siphon out your wealth. So that's the game, man. And if you're really not paying attention, you're going to have to pay for this with a price tag that is going to be just ridiculous. It's going to be like irreparable for your whole net worth here, people, especially for the younger people. If you guys are younger and girls out here and you think that it's all fun and games and you're not really paying attention to what's happening and you think, oh, don't worry, it'll get better. The economy doesn't work like, hey, you put someone new in and everything's fixed. The way it tends to work is when things get very bad, it's like a body. The economy is a living thing. It's very human. It's essentially us and what we're doing. But most of the things that we have are on credit. This is money in the future. So who's going to pay the bills if the people who essentially ate all the meal cease to exist at the table? You're still sitting at the table with the bill, and you could be essentially starving because you didn't get any of the meal. But now you have to pay for the whole meal. And when you're hungry, you don't have the energy to do so. And that's essentially what's going on. They're siphoning out the resources, hollowing out the nation, and they're going to stick a lot of these young people who don't understand what's going on yet with these bills. And when you guys get older, when you pass your 30s, 40s, and start to look at the world more financially, you'll realize like this is crazy. And I was out playing around, telling jokes or doing salacious things during my youth. Telling you, you don't want to chase the money in any way whatsoever. This isn't how it's going to be played. You really want to find out who you are consciously, how to add value to the people around you, and to call out any ridiculous government corruption that's going on when they're playing the game hand in hand with corporations. Well, I'm going to wrap it up here. We're getting towards the other area. Hope you all are doing great out there and wish you the best. But honestly, if you're not paying attention to what's going on right now financially, then you're really missing the real war here. And these stages, the next wars that are going to be fought will be completely financial.